Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics.
Oh, what a very careful hand you have there, Mr. Dunning, pouring that beer beautifully.
I don't want to waste any. Oh, shit, I may have just shown what brand it was. Other brands are available.
Other brands of beer are available, like tea as well. I mean, this could be anything in here, but it's. I'm not going to tell you what brand of tea it is.
No,
but it's
or what whiskey you've added to it. Not that you would, of course. But
actually, that's not far from the truth, because I've been busy over the weekend and I had a long drive back from the gig. And when I got in at night, I thought, ooh, hot toddy, which in this heat you'd think was ridiculous, but was very refreshing. Anyway, mate, lovely to see you.
Cheers. I was going to say, and I'm probably wrong because I tend to be.
Never.
Hasn't it been scientifically proven that actually the better way to cool down is a hot drink? And I can't remember why that is. Something to do with not an extreme change in temperature.
I think you might be right. It heats up, so the body automatically starts to cool itself down, so it speeds up cooling you down.
And equally, and again, probably wrong, I did go to some science lessons. I think hot water freezes quicker than cold water.
Oh God, I don't know about that. I'm you know what? We were boiling kettles in a when we finished recording today.
Ice cubes. Yeah.
It's shoving in the freezer again. Actually,
so that concludes Drewling Samantics science lessons.
Science of the week.
How do we get? Anyway, good to see you, mate.
And you.
You said busy week.
Yeah, well, towards the end of the week, I'd had a lovely immersive weekend, 40 Towers weekend. So it got busy towards the end of the week. I've been learning lines and rehearsing bits and bobs. So yeah, but a lovely weekend spent as Manuel with some lovely guests in a lovely hotel. So it was lovely.
But I may be jumping to conclusions here, but was it lovely?
Funny you should say that, Sam.
Really?
Funny you should say that. It was very pleasant. What about you? Have you had a pleasant weekend, whatever?
What is going on with today's episode? It's absolute carnage.
No.
We've talked about freezing, boiling ice cubes and how things are lovely. I've had a mega busy week again as well. Interesting enough, I was also doing immersive 40 Towers at the end of last week, and it's funny you should mention it. Cue this week's segue. But the person I was working for, or should I say the guy who runs the company and was organising the event, just so happens to be in our waiting room, Mr. Fettis.
What, at this very moment?
At this very moment, we are about to be joined by the wonderful Mr. Steve Arber, who both you and I have a long history with, having worked with in various different ways. And yeah, I cannot wait to hear what he's got to say, because we've spent... we've been doing the podcast over 2 years now, and we've talked a lot about immersive shows because we've both been involved in them. We've even done some on the scenes stuff, sort of like talking about how they run. But the best person to know about how they run, or talk about how they run, is the guy that organises them and runs a company that performs them. And it just so happens that Mr. Arber does just that. And now the sign's falling down. And do you know what? Normally, and I'm going to leave this in. Normally we'd go, oh shit, the sign's fallen down. Let's do another take. No, bollocks. This is going in the final edit.
You're going to leave that there, aren't you?
I'm leaving it in there because we've already gone off on a massive tangent and done all sorts of weird intro-y stuff. And now you're going to try and line it up, and it's not going to...
I can't line it. No, forget it now. I'm not lining it up. It's gone up.
Give it up.
There'll gone up on the pitch.
And you'll sort it just before Steve appears. But we'll pretend like nothing's happened. But
nothing's happened.
Because it's bloody hilarious. Ladies and gents, please meet the wonderful Mr. Steve Arber.
And good morning to Mr. Arber. How are you doing, sir? Lovely to see you.
All good. Thanks, Andrew.
Excellent stuff. Excellent. Now, I mean, to Sam and I, you need no introduction. We've worked with you many times, etc., etc. And we'll get to all that. in due course, as it were. But just for those people who don't know the great and wonderful Steve Arber, who don't appreciate the genius of Essex that you are, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little introduction, Steve.
Excuse me. Okay, so I run a company called The Cut Productions. We trade as comedy dinner shows, providing dining-based interactive entertainment shows, specifically more often than not tributes to famous classic sitcoms. Been doing this since it was 2011, which would have been when I first met you, Drew.
Yeah.
And it's hard to believe it's quite that long, but it's been an interesting road, certainly the last few years. But that's what I do primarily. Obviously, the pandemic hit us all, as we all know, and in the last couple of years, I've begun working for my sister runs a micro theatre in Billericay called the Billericay Theatre. Last couple of years, I've come on board and I've been running that more on a kind of part-time basis, but doing that at the same time. And fingers crossed, the comedy dinner stuff is picking up again. But those are the kind of the two sides of my life very much at the moment.
It's very much a family business, isn't it? Because you've got your sister running the theatre, which obviously you now are part of as well. You are a performer yourself, but also run comedy dinner shows and run the company doing things like that. And then you've got your brother who writes scripts. So it's all very self-contained. And was it always like growing up, were you all performers? You all wanted to be in this kind of industry, or is this a happy coincidence?
No, not at all. So there's only, I think there's 18 months between myself and my sister, and my brother's nearly 10 years younger than me. My sister's younger. Helen, my sister, has always been a performer since very young, very, she won't mind me saying, extrovert, whereas I was the absolute opposite, very, very shy as a kid. And as I kind of grew up, I found an interest in writing. That was something I really wanted to kind of go into. Acting, I think even 10 years ago, if you'd have said to me that I'd ever walk onto a stage or join in with one of these dinner shows, I'd have just laughed at you. But it's kind of my sort of path has kind of, I guess, gone in line with me becoming less and less shy. And that's kind of opened up me into the other areas of the industry. My brother very much he wasn't shy like me, but he was very much into his writing. Did that at university. Very focused on sitcom writing. It's done very not had anything produced yet, but has become very close. And only this year, actually, he's stepped on stage for the first time as well. But in terms of a family, it's a bit of an in-joke that no one, my parents aren't quite sure how it all kind of came this way. Although having said that, they've both got, you can kind of see how they've both got their artistic sort of sides, and comedy, especially, I think, amongst all of us as well. And then, the theatre opened. So, I mean, my sister ran a dance musical theatre small school some years back, and I came on board with her, and that's probably, it is 10 years ago because they've got a 10-year anniversary coming up. I came on board to build that into something a bit bigger, which goes under her name. It's Helen Arber Performing Arts, or HAPA. So I worked on that for a few years, just purely the sort of running of the business. That went well, but as the comedy dinner shows took off, I just didn't have the time for the two, which was a good problem to have. So stepped aside from that, and then it was at the tail end of 2019 that she finally found a building that could potentially be a premises for both the stage school and a small theatre. Although I think the theatre was kind of nothing. It wasn't part of the plan, I don't think, at the very beginning. I know you've been there, Sam, but it was a microbrewery, but it was an enormous kind of shell of an industrial sort of place. It got totally changed over. It's got a state-of-the-art dance studio, a micro theatre at the back, but I say micro theatre, it's got sort of 100 seats, but it's a huge room. And you've got a excuse me, a cafe at the / bar in the building as well. So there's all sorts go on there. Like I say, it opened at the end of 2019. So within a matter of months, that was shut down because of the pandemic. And it was sort of, well, you can open, but we need a seat between each person and all this kind of nonsense, which it was, you can imagine, and you know from your own lines of work what a nightmare those years were. But yeah, it's been kind of building that back up, do all manner of stuff there. They've got an in-house theatre company that produces. We do a lot of live music, tribute acts, hires as well, private hires. The cafe runs day to day. The stage school still runs out of the building, and so I'm there most of the week as well, running that, and can run from that office the dinner shows as well.
So you sit there and you say, I'm very sure, and I've actually worked with you. You've actually popped up as Uncle Albert one night when we did a gig, and that was quite an experience. Great, and you say, I'm quite shy in that. I mean, I know you're still waters run deep, and obviously there's a lot of thought goes into a lot of planning, a lot of production. You obviously have a big love of comedy. And it sounds like, with your brother writing the scripts, that there's, you obviously have your comedy heroes, your sitcom heroes. Is that love of comedy what drew you into the dinner shows and the interactive stuff? Is that how were you inspired, as it were?
Yeah, it did in a way. I mean, before that, when I say, I was writing, but I was writing, short plays for fringe theatre. I was really into. I loved that, and some film scripts that I was always tinkering away on. But I worked up in London at the time, and I knew the opportunity for a voluntary redundancy was there, and I kind of knew in my heart I wanted to do something different. I'd just been to the Edinburgh Festival, I think, for the first or second time. I was well aware of the 40 Towers dining experience. Mm-hmm. And I knew, who still is a very good friend, good few years older than myself, Tim, who you would have met as well, Drew.
Yeah.
Who was a Basil Fawlty impersonator. Just went out and did it, privately. He's a real character. And I thought I couldn't see any reason why we couldn't put something together. And we then looked at casting a Manuel and a Sybil, so it followed the same format of other companies that were doing this kind of thing. And I think that's where we met you, Drew, because I think
it was
you couldn't do the dates, if I remember rightly, but you still came down and
I did, we came down and
gave us a bit of your Manuel. But yeah, I mean, it was really, especially, I mean, having kind of taken voluntary redundancy, I didn't have much of an excuse other than to throw myself completely into it. And, luckily with only 12 episodes, watching them to research, and I'd seen them all obviously many times, but watching them and really, really kind of taking quite sort of meticulous notes about all the things you'd want to get into a tribute to that classic show that everyone knows so well. Which I really enjoyed, and writing the script for that and casting it, and then kind of watching it evolve over time. I mean, Sam, in fact, is the most recent person to come on board as well for that show. He's done others with us, and I mean, I particularly like letting finding people that you trust to kind of come together and being able to sort of barely get involved and just kind of let them kind of work things out together. So different combinations of cast members. We've got lots that do these shows, particularly 40 Towers, which is our most popular one. have got slightly different ways of doing it, their combination. And that's fine. I think that's kind of that's how we work best anyway. I know it's not necessarily what other companies might do, but I think it's important to allow people the sort of freedom to kind of to go with it. And
it keeps it fresh, doesn't it? Because if you do see someone you haven't worked with before, and you suddenly discuss, well, I try and do this, I do that, I play. It keeps it fresh, and if we all know and love. I mean, Sam and I we've had long conversations about this in the past. But if you know and love the material, which we all do, almost 50-70% of the work is done for you because people love those characters. But then taking it a step further, I always think what we do is these are the 13th, 14th episodes. These are the ones that didn't get aired, kind of thing. And so I love working with another Basil or another Sybil or something. You get it, you go, oh, I've never heard that said before. That's brilliant. So yeah, just letting it run is quite refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I used to, in the early days, I used to tag along to most of the shows, and we'd probably do the driving or whatever. And it was always watching it from the wings, so to speak, which might be poking your head out of the kitchen. It was, on the one hand, I always felt really jealous because it looked so much fun and you're watching people have a great time. On the other hand, and then also you'd have, certain things. I try not, I never kind of sort of chip in and try and sort of direct people, certainly not when things are going on. But watching it, just spontaneous things happening and things like that. I remember I was at a show once, and it was with Tim actually as Basil, and he came back in the kitchen and someone was asking for more toast for their pate because you know what people are like, and right next to me was a toaster. So I just thought, I just handed it to Tim and like, you got to take this out. There's a loaf of bread, there's a toaster. Just go and make something of that. And so so it's it was amazing to me. Like every show just seems completely different, and that's because the audience are completely different. Yeah. But like you say, Drew, they're there to have fun. They're on your side from the beginning. They adore the show. So it certainly is important that you can't have your own complete take on it.
No.
The characters have got to behave like the characters would behave as much as possible, obviously. But yeah, it was and always will be lovely to stick your head out of the kitchen and watch people and hear people, laughing like that, and thinking, I've had a little part of that. So yeah. It's great fun.
But it's also a credit to the scripts and to the production of the shows that we as performers are given that freedom. So yes, there is a script and the show is very much in a creative format and things happen in an order and there is a storyline to follow, because without that, it would make, number one, it'd be a nightmare for kitchen staff and serving staff to try and fit around what we do. But equally, you don't want it to be that ambiguous that there's no start, middle and end sort of thing. That the audience need to be able to follow the process and understand what's going on, and they know something's happening and then they know, right, this is coming to an end. But equally, the scripts, and certainly working with yourself and Drew, we are given the ability to go, right, here's the storyline, here's the script, this is what we need to get out, but play with it, work around it. You are representing these incredible characters written by very talented people and originally presented by very talented people. And as you say, the audience already love them. They're already there because they go, well, as long as Basil comes out, he whacks Manuel around the head and does the silly walk, we've ticked the boxes. But it's then, where do you take it from there, sticking within the requirements or certainly the tone of the character, but being given that freedom to kind of go off on one or mix things up. And at the end of the day, these are very famous and very much loved TV shows, which people sat and watched and laughed at. But when we do it, we're live, we're stood there, there is an audience. You cannot stop an audience member getting involved necessarily. Like, there will be heckles, there will be interaction. So I think working with very good scripts gives you that facility to be able to sort of go off on a tangent, interact with people. So it's very much a collaborative thing. Yes, obviously certain people are stood out there being the actual characters or doing the physical thing. But equally, I mean, Steve, I know we did a show last week together, and you're in the kitchen sorting out the service and stuff, and you've got almost fingers in every pie. Not literally, don't worry, guests at the show. Steve wasn't poking your dinner as it went out. But it's, I think, from your side of things, having that, not necessarily that control, but that experience and seeing every stage happen, whether that's you spent time on stage with other performers, or you've organised a script, or you've actually been doing the service and the timings. That must give you a much better control and understanding, and then the facility to make the company successful and those shows successful.
Yeah, it's interesting, I suppose, to kind of be a part of every single aspect to some extent. I mean, in the early days, I wrote the scripts, and then as we got busier, I was able to then sort of outsource that. Lawrence, who's one of our longest serving actors, Lawrence Russell, he's an incredible actor and an incredible writer. So he then did that. And to be honest, I won't lie, that was probably quite difficult for me to sort of hand over. But that was, it was, again, it's that thing of being able to trust people. But yeah, seeing certainly, so the show you're referencing was at the Billericay Theatre, which doesn't typically do catered events, for example. It's quite rare. So I'm able to explain. You would have both come up against this a million times, where you turn up at the venue and give them their briefing, the staff, and you explain, look, an absolute key thing is that you do not serve or clear until we're ready. We'll liaise throughout. In any normal restaurant, someone's table's finished, you clear those plates. You do not leave people sat with dirty plates. Tonight you will, and don't worry, they won't care. Because it still can happen where the staff are suddenly out there. You've got these youngsters, that's how they've been taught. But it's those little things where you kind of say, look, I know how these things work. I know how I've never in all these years doing it heard of anyone go, well, I was sat there with a dirty plate for longer than I wanted to. They're there for a show, and the food. I think I remember seeing or hearing someone reference it once as the food is a prop to the event, in a sense. But more so with a 40 Towers or a lower where you're in. There was a restaurant in 40 Towers and the cafe in a lower. But having all those kind of different sort of facets that I've covered is definitely helpful. Again, I won't lie, sometimes you get bogged down in the kind of more boring stuff and administration and stuff as well. It's so easy to find yourself jealous of everyone going out there and having fun and making people laugh. But it's nice to. I mean, we're putting a new show together now. Sam, you're part of it, and it's not compared to those early days, but certainly the first. Putting that 40 Towers show together with no real idea of how it was going to kind of work, to now feel that trust in yourself to we know how we have to do this. I know the people I can trust. I always, I know it's probably the same everywhere, but it's always key for me that we've got, good people, nice people that get along and then, you've kind of been able to just sort of hand it over to them in rehearsal to sort of work on things, and then, pull all the little bits together, and off it goes.
Well, I mean, Sam and I have said it, and I've experienced it. There are some. I mean, you get a good cast together, and as you say, you can just wind them up and let them go. And it's interesting that there are actors that can't do this work; that it terrifies them. You see a wonderful actor. They'll come in their audition. You think, great, she's going to do that. It'll be perfect. And you get them on the night, and suddenly they're like a rabbit in the headlights, and you think, wow. And I've worked with guys in your position who, they've got to the show, they've set everything up, and they say, right, I'm going to go and sit in the bar. I'll see you afterwards. Have fun. And then, they've come running in and go, what the hell's happening? I said, well, someone's gone, your man can't do it. It's like, oh, Christ, what are we going to do? And that's not a criticism of that person. It is a particular discipline. So, like you say, you have to look for, people that are going to get on, but also people that can brave that kind of being within 2 feet of an audience member who's going to grab you and go, I want more toast. It's completely throw you off as well. It's interesting.
I've never underestimated how hard that is as a kind of discipline within acting. I mean, I was going back again quite a long way, but I remember I met a guy who got in touch saying he was interested in playing Basil Fawlty. He'd done it a couple of times as like appearances, and I met him at Waterloo Station, believe it or not. Whether it was under the clock, I'm not sure, but it was in Waterloo. And I'm standing there. I'd seen pictures of him, and I knew he was a tall guy, and he looked quite a bit like Basil Fawlty. And all of a sudden, this guy just from across the station starts walking at me, fully dressed, Basil Fawlty, false moustache, like he's performing it, not just for me to meet me, but at the whole station. And I won't lie, I was thinking, like, what have I done? But then we did his first show, and he was a lovely guy, a great actor. And in the show, like the responses were great. Like people were, they were loving him. There was you couldn't sense anyone was questioning this actor. But he went to pieces off stage. Just like, I can't do it. And he was just the nerves in. And even like I say, even with his performance going down so well. So it's not for everyone. It's certainly, not my forte. I mean, I've not got involved an awful lot beyond the kind of bit of Uncle Albert. But it's what you get as well. You get a lot of interest in these.
I'm going to have to step aside. My doorbell's ringing. It's live, people. I'll be with you in 2 seconds.
Yeah, you can't make this rubbish up. Although with Drew, these things tend to happen. But yeah, so the one you're referencing, Steve, that was actually a show with Drew, wasn't it? Where you, or one of the times anyway, you stepped in as Uncle Albert.
Yeah, so typically we don't do the Only Fools and Horses show anymore, like everyone else. No one's able to. But yeah, he typically, whoever plays Del Boy also plays Uncle Albert. Drew stepped in relatively last minute amongst a ton of other work, like he's always got on. I said, well, look,
busiest man.
I've done Uncle Albert before, so if that makes it easier, you don't have to learn that bit. And
you rescued me on that one, Steve. Thank you very much. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. That was UPS delivering bubble mixture. There you go.
That was going to be
the
my
glamorous
guess.
world of acting.
The glamorous world of performing. Yeah, I've recently learned how to do. I better explain. Sorry, Steve. Recently learned how to do make giant bubbles. These big bubbles. And my other half and myself, Ryan and I, we do these children's fun days. And I've learned how to make these big giant bubbles that you see guys make on the seaside. It's great fun, but they've just delivered. UPS have just, I have to say, grumpy bloody driver. But yes, he's just got the bubble mixture off, and he's like, yeah. It's like, thanks a bunch. But yes, sorry, Steve, that was me. But yeah, you rescued me that time. And I also remember I was away in Jersey, and I had to ring you up, and I went, Steve, I'm stuck in Jersey, mate. I'm not going to get back because there were storms. We'd gone out to do I'd gone and done a faulty weekend. And we got stuck in Jersey.
Yes,
I remember ringing you up and going, "I'm really sorry, Steve."
Did you jump in at that point, Steve? Did
I'm in Jersey, so yeah.
Well, I mean, I remember that phone call. So yeah, we must have worked something out. I mean, again, these things happen. And the beauty of having this kind of pool of actors, and particularly ones who can be in lots of different shows, means you can call on people and you juggle things about, quite often. Certainly with those more popular shows, you've got 2 or 3 out on one night. But yes, there's often been the time where you're kind of calling someone up and going, look, I need you to step in here. Someone, Drew's in Jersey,
Drew's stuck in Jersey, yeah.
Drew's living life to the max, pretending to be stuck somewhere. He's no.
Oh, mate, I was stuck. It was bloody horrendous weekend, but that's for another time. Is there a show? Is there something that you think I would love to get that either on stage or one of the interactive, the immersive dinner shows? Is there one that you think to yourself, I'd really like a crack at that?
You mean like a sitcom that we another one? Do you know what? I know you two must get this as well, but the amount of people that come up and say, "Oh, you have to do one on this," or recently, you've got to do an in-betweeners, and you think, no, it wouldn't. No. We all know that would never work in a million years. We did for a little while, and it still kind of exists. Is a Tommy Cooper show, which we did kind of manage to transfer to the dinner tribute setting, with part sort of typical Tommy Cooper stand-up kind of and magic, plus some scenes like he would have had in his old TV shows.
The sketch scenes.
And I'll be honest, I don't know, misjudged it slightly, because I was kind of convinced that 75% of people that were around and watched him back in the day adored him, and a few didn't. But he's actually really quite Marmite. I didn't realise that. So it wasn't quite it didn't quite take off the way I'd like. But I would. And I think, have you worked with Phil Hoyles?
I have. I know Phil.
Yes, So and he was an incredible Tommy Cooper impersonator, as well as a great actor. And we discussed for a little while with Lawrence, who I mentioned earlier, putting something together for the stage, a Tommy Cooper show, which I would still love to do, because I think I love him, and it's.
I think there's still an audience out there, but it's as you say, it's a particular. You either do or you don't. It's like, I know people take out, the tribute to Mrs. Brown's Boys, and that's Mama. There are people I've met people at Fawlty Towers nights. I've been doing that, and someone would be roaring away. You got someone sitting there, with their arms crossed and a sour face. I've never liked Fawlty Towers. I'm only here because he told me I've got to come along. And oh Christ, if you can crack a smile at the end of the night, you go, she smiled. You think, her husband's going to really get it in the neck tonight. But
I always find it strange, because if someone said, "Do you want to come and watch this play at the theatre?" and you thought, "No, I absolutely hate that. I'm not going." It's simple as that.
Yeah.
But at these dinner shows, you would find. Yeah, you do find that sometimes. I remember with Only Fools and Horses was before we had to stop doing it. It had got to the point where it was as popular as our Fawlty Towers show, probably more so. But it's an interesting kind of audience, because I would say it spanned more generations, but you had a lot of people that weren't really experts or great fans as such, but it was just part of the culture so much, and they'd grown up with it. So you get these big groups come out, and sometimes they were just out to be out, and you were kind of battling against their evening out, So it's interesting. The Fawlty Towers audience, a little bit older. I'd say the ones I always liked being at the most was Hello. I don't know why, but the audience was a certain kind of demographic. They'd all look a bit more refined, which is nothing against the other audience members normally, but they looked like the sort of people you think, oh, how are they going to react to the innuendos and all those things? They're so clever within Hello. And then when you watch those people crack and let themselves go,
I find with Hello, you get a 50-50. You get the people you're describing, or you get the ones that turn up in costume. Of all the shows we do, and you span so many different fabulous sitcoms and tribute shows, but Hello tends to be the one where people get most involved. And I don't know what it is about it, but you can almost guarantee when you do an Hello show that there will be half the audience dressed in either stripes with onions and a beret, or as a British airman or policeman or whatever, but they just get involved, and it's great. Is there a certain, and I guess the question has kind of answered itself, but is there a certain thing you look for when you do create a new one? I mean, so for example, as you said, you used to do Fools and Horses. That's not around anymore, but you've got 40 Towers, Hello, Blackadder, Mrs. Brown's Boys. They all have a certain style. What is it in particular that you look for when you go, this would also work?
What I would look for in a sitcom.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, a lot of it is just the most obvious. Like, how popular is it with what demographics? So, for example, The Inbetweeners, as an example, it was enormous. It's probably the biggest sitcom of the last. Well, yeah, it's a lot longer ago than I'm thinking now, maybe. But that young generation who watched and loved it. One, I tend not to come out for this kind of entertainment quite as much. Two, there are just certain things where, I don't know, you've got to be able to caricature these characters a little bit as well. And I think you could find the 4 best impersonators to pull off those 4 in-betweeners characters. But that audience, you just know they're not gonna buy it, and they don't want to buy it either. So you kind of look for something a bit older. I mean, the one we began it just before the pandemic hit, and it was proving very popular with bookings. Obviously, that then it got put a stop to. Was Vicar of Dibley, which is picking up really nicely, and I think that is because it probably spans a few generations. It's just got that, I don't know, it just feels classic to me. The cast, everything about it is. And stands alone as well. There are certain sitcoms we go, but you kind of imagine it in the same bracket as this and this and this. The Vicar of Dibley, for example, feels very much a sort of standalone one. And interestingly, with a lot of them, and Hello was one as well, where I thought that will work. Now I've got to go back and watch them. And Hello was on when I was a young kid, and I remember it being a thing on a Saturday night and kind of enjoying it and thinking I sort of got it, but then really watching it back was just how clever that writing is. There's so much to it. It stands out so unique, I think. So it's nice. And same with Vicar of Dibley. We just go, it's just exceptional writing that feels like it can transfer, whereas there's great, and one that just came to mind now, which could never work for obvious reasons, that I love and watched the other day, is Peep Show. Classic sitcom. You can't do that.
No.
And even if you thought you'd be clever and have audio of thoughts being, inner monologues, it just wouldn't work. And I think it needs to be stuff as well. You can put a bit of energy into, where, I mean, 40 Towers was just frantic. Del Boy has just got this natural kind of sort of energy. But then even with something like Hello, which was a lot more sort of about the dialogue and the cleverness of that, you need to put a little bit of something into having your kind of baddie in Hair Flick, for example, gives you scope there.
Gives you the jeopardy, doesn't it? The threat to go somewhere.
Yeah. And then obviously, I mean, a few years ago, before doing Hello as a dinner show, I might have kind of rolled my eyes at thinking of the policeman in Hello. Just that boring joke of just tweaking a word, getting them wrong. But it's just brilliant. It's so simple, but it's so brilliant, and audiences love it. They absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And it's quite, it's rude, a little rude, pushing the boundaries here and there, but you'll get people you didn't think you'd make laugh, roll about. You
don't know what lies underneath for people, do you? You cannot judge a book by its cover. You can walk into a dining room of 50, 60 people and go, you're going to laugh, you're not, blah. And that within 5 minutes, it's all turned on its head, isn't it? It's all completely changed,
Yeah. We still get the odd venue phone up we've got someone they're looking at booking. They just want to know what's going to happen to them. Are they going to get pulled out of their seat? Is this going to happen? And we always explain, look, no one who doesn't want to get involved in any sort of way is going to have to. That's no good for us either, having someone that's just terrified or whatever. So it's just then that judgment just comes in, as you know, on the night. And certainly people love watching someone else get picked on, because there's that relief that, like, you know, it's not me. But even then, you know, no one's getting humiliated in any way, you know.
No.
If anything, you've got that challenge, haven't you, of some people turn up thinking they're part of the show, or they know all the lines and they're chipping in, and you got to kind of navigate that. But
yeah.
So, mate, we've had a chat after all those years, all those shows. We always end with a funny little story. Is there one moment that stands out for you, either ridiculous, funny, or whatever, that you can go, yeah, that's that one, I remember that?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's been a few. I won't lie.
Yeah.
So yes, like I say, I used to go to a fair amount of the shows with the cast, and then back then as well, before having kids, sometimes it was a stay over. It meant I could stay away for a night. It was just something different, a bit of a treat, and have a couple of beers with the cast afterwards. And I remember one trip, I couldn't tell you for the life of me what the venue was. But I was sharing a room with an actor. I won't say his name. Sadly, he's no longer with us, actually. But I can say with 100% certainty, he would not have a problem with me telling this story. So we'd done the show, had a couple of beers, gone to bed. That was the last I knew of this, until I later found out what had transpired. So, as you two will know, I wear hearing aids at night. They come out, I can't hear anything. I mean, I've slept through fire alarms, I've slept through all sorts. Nothing's going to wake me up. And what had apparently happened is this guy, he'd woken up, walked out of the room because he needed the toilet. But he was sleepwalking. He managed to leave the entire room. He's out in the corridor. It's getting desperate by all accounts. He's hammering on the door to wake me up, to let him back in. Nothing at all. The long and short of it is, he didn't make it in time. And I'll leave the rest to your imagination, but suffice to say, I wasn't his favourite person.
No.
Oh,
that's just one.
that's lovely. I like that. That's very.
And he would absolutely appreciate it.
He would tell that against himself. Brilliant.
Can
Love
I ask, what character was he playing? He wasn't in his sleepwalking state. I mean, obviously you were asleep, so I guess you don't know. But he wasn't sleepwalking in character. It wasn't like Basil Fawlty doing goose stepping up and down.
Well, that might have triggered it, I suppose. But he was playing Basil, but he was out there in only his pants. That's
wow. That
brilliant.
What
Brilliant stuff.
That is.
Yeah.
Steve, it's been a massive pleasure talking to you. I mean, I talk to you fairly regularly. I'm honoured that I get to work with you and your company on a regular basis, and particularly at the moment we're developing new shows, and we had a show we did recently, and it is genuinely a pleasure to be part of such a passionate company with someone at the forefront who just has a genuine love for comedy, and that is reflected in what we do, and the fact that it does have, I mean, I said about it earlier, the sort of whole family business kind of thing. It is a family feel to it. Everyone is respected and valued to a huge amount. So it's a pleasure to work with you, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I mean, we could have gone on for hours about various incidents over the years at different shows and things.
Oh yeah.
Maybe we should do that, Drew. Maybe we should do get multiple guests on that have worked for dining companies and just almost have a pissing contest. Who's got the most ridiculous story? and
I mean, as you know, Steve, I mean, the what we do, if the stories that you tell people go, no, we wouldn't believe that. They wouldn't believe half the bloody things that go on. They're so extraordinary. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. It really has. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
And as we say, we'll come back. We're not going anywhere, So we come back and tell us more, of people
absolutely.
exposing themselves during, much work.
On that note, we'll let you get away. Thanks ever so much, Steve. Take it easy, mate.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, mate. All the best. Lovely to see you.
Don't we have the best luck, Drew, in the sense that obviously we have incredible guests, but we also get to work with phenomenal people. And Steve's just a very passionate guy who is very knowledgeable in all areas of what he does. And I think it makes life much easier as a performer to have someone who has great control and great knowledge of the business and what you're trying to do, but equally, as we talked about, gives you the freedom to be the performer. It gives you that leeway to kind of go, I trust you to do your job.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like he said, he loves what he's doing. He loves comedy. And he's also one of the nicest guys to work for, as you know. He's one of the most very genuine. There's no sides to what you see is what you get. So he gets those nice people around. And like you say, he just lets you go for it. And I respect that. And obviously, he knows his subject as well. So if there was if there was something, you go, that ain't going to work, mate. You'd go, yeah, you're right. But it's that genuine passion, and he is a very funny guy as well. He's very, very dry humor. I've a couple of times I've had a drink with him after a show, and we've sat there laughing until God knows what time in the morning. Lovely bloke, really lovely.
Yeah. And as you say, like, very professional and very good at what he does. But equally, at the end of the day, he's running a business, so that is a focal point. But his passion shines through over that. I mean, we've all had the incidents where we've worked for people who you kind of know from the off, this is a money-making thing, and that's where the focus is going to be.
That's what it is, yeah.
But you don't get that feel ever, despite the fact it is a business and it needs to make profit. It's almost as much about making sure people have a good time and doing justice to what we're doing. And
and he does, he's because he's working with his sister now, running the theatre school and the theatre, etc. He's obviously a very good businessman, and and he does what he does very well. But I know his production values of his shows are excellent. But there's that thing about, if you like your job enough, you're not going to work. I think you could just see the joy was, he packed up a job, to do this, and a lot of people have done that. They've made that transition. But not only has he made that transition, giving himself a job he loves, he's employing us, other actors, which is, you've got to applaud anyone that is giving people work. And he survived, as he said, the unwelcome guest. So
he did. To still have an independent theatre running post lockdowns and stuff is quite the achievement.
Absolutely.
And beyond being a nice guy and a good businessman, he treats you well as an employee. Like, he values you. Albeit we are all freelance, but whatever. Like, there's just that trust and understanding, and he cares, and that's I think that is apparent for everyone to see. So if anyone happens to be looking for an event to go and attend, do check out Comedy Dinner Shows. The lovely Steve Arber runs the company, and you never know, you might see some familiar faces pop up if you're lucky, depending on what we're up to. But definitely worth checking out. Really good guy, very talented guy, and a wonderful, wonderful guest, I must say, Drew.
Great guest. But now, unfortunately, mate, next week we don't have a guest. We're just back to Dee and me. I know we say this and we apologise, but it does mean at least we can't ever be sued, because no one's going to be disappointed, are they? Just you and me.
We are pre-warning. There are these flags suggesting if you join us next week, you're not going to get an interesting extra person.
No,
it will just be the dynamic duo.
It's just Sam and Drew next week, so just lower your expectations. You'll be fine.
We're not very good at this selling things.
Self-promotion, we don't do very well, do we, mate?
No, maybe we need to bring someone in to make it sound like we actually we know.
Maybe bring Steve in to market us, sell us.
Yeah, but I think he's a tad busy
I
trying
think
to
he might
wrangle
be.
actors
He might
like
be.
us. There's a vicious circle in there somewhere. But no, to that tune, mate, to seeing you next week, I shall raise a glass, as always.
I'll raise me tea.
Thank everyone for joining us. I hope you enjoyed hearing what Steve had to say. And yeah, come back next week. Steve won't be here, but me and him will.
We will be. Take care, everyone.
See you later. Cheers.
Bye-bye now.
Thanks again for watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
Please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video.
Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And please support us on social media. All our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so why not share with your family and friends so they can join in too? Thanks very much. See you next time.